Welcome back to SwitchCorner. Today we're going to be taking a look at RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 Complete Edition. This is a series I personally grew up on and no doubt wasted thousands of hours upon it, so does it still retain that magic and is it worth the add to your library? Well, hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here, join our growing family and let's get started. So RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 was the series' first foray into 3D, and at the time, reviews, I gotta say, they were largely positive outside of some minor bugs and then a frame rate that was just a little temperamental, albeit that was always with, the larger parks or how you maybe manipulated the landscape. These are the areas that I really want to focus on today. Does it not only take what is the addictive formula we are used to, but then add in some quality of life fixes to make this the best it's ever felt, including how does it make the jump to a controller format? Well, first let's start there. Controls for the most part are actually pretty intuitive, and while it will no doubt take a little while to get used to, I had no real problems with Joy-Cons or the Pro Controller. It's rare and I think is urgent on those earlier levels as well, so it makes for a good learning pace as you stumble your way through the combination of inputs. The main two here you're going to be using though are dial selectors. One attached to the left trigger, this is construction focus, what you're going to build next for the park, and then the one to the right trigger, that is things like park data, prices, information on the rides themselves. There is a lot of information here, I will say that, and the game's tutorial is somewhat lacking almost. It almost feels like it relied on, veterans of RollerCoaster Tycoon 1 and 2 to come across and already understanding kind of the ins and outs of things. It's not bad or anything at all, it's just sometimes you'll stumble upon something and be like, oh, didn't even know I could do that. Overall though, I'm impressed on a control front, and I also appreciate the number of options here. Think you can flip the axes, you can change the visual cues, you can add a grid to the map, you can up that sensitivity, because I will say the speed on boot up for me was a tad too slow for my taste. I'm all about options, especially for controls, and RollerCoaster Tycoon delivers on that front for me. So game modes then, and we get really two. We get career mode and we get sandbox. Career mode gives you three options because you can choose between either the base game or one of the two DLC packs that they're bundled in for free, and that is Soaked and Wild. The base game, it has 18 scenarios to work your way through. Soaked then has 9 and Wild has 12. These can be everything from build a park from scratch to maintain and improve a current park. For each of these scenarios as well, you'll be able to hit up to 3 sets of objectives with Apprentice tier, Entrepreneur and Tycoon, so think basically bronze, silver and gold. Now naturally, the deeper you get into these scenarios, the more challenge you can expect to face. Sandbox then is just that, a massive empty park, an unlimited bank account, and really only your creativity holding you back. I will say though here, career mode will actually restrict some of the things you can use in Sandbox. Think pre-built tracks for your roller coasters. I don't know about you though, the best bit of this was always creating my own rides, so it's not a massive loss. What I found disappointing in this mode though, honestly, I like the unlimited cash and the maximum park size, but I wish it gave me more options to make it as easy or as hard as I want it to be. Why not give me, or at least give me the option for a restricted budget, for example, and then I can work myself towards that next Disney and then gain that incredible level of satisfaction. I can't remember if the original actually had that as an option. I'm not sure if they've removed it here, or I could be completely wrong, but either way, it would have been just a nice addition to things. Overall though, look, whether it's in sandbox mode or career, this is the same great addictive gameplay formula you know and love. If you are new to the series, prepare to get addicted. Here you're going to be building shops, setting out pathways, changing the scenery, hiring staff members, choosing and building the rides, extending the park. That's before you even get to the business side of things as well. Then think the pricing of these rides and entry, something I'm a lot greedier with as an adult. Your merch and the staff members that repair broken down rides or clean the park, that's going to help you ensure that next award, the most tidy park of the year, my favorite. There's just so much to do, and when you throw in the ability to now add, water parks and even zoos, thanks to the DLC, you can really create some stunning locations. That all said, of course, remember the roller coasters themselves as well. They're in the name after all, and they're as addictive as ever. Sure, you can build templated track designs like I said, but who wants to do that? The real entertainment here is in building your own and just going absolutely crazy. The controls as well, for the most part, they work just fine, as you'll quickly create, as I say, some weird and wonderful designs. I gotta say, found very few issues on the gameplay front. One big question is going to be the text, no doubt, and I actually had no problems in handout if you are curious. I did have some troubles connecting connecting with individual customers when I wanted to see what was wrong. They're just so small on the screen, and the Joy-Cons or the Pro Controller don't quite have the same, precision as a keyboard and mouse would. Also then, and this is a weird one, but you can't drag and drop, meaning, let's say you want to build a pavement across the entire middle of the park. Here, clicking and then dragging would have made the most sense, but you can't do that. You need to click on each and every single square to place the pavement, which really kind of slows down something that should have been extremely quick. So performance wise then, it's solid, honestly, sticking for nearly the entire experience at 30 FPS. In the footage you're seeing now, I'm essentially trying to break RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 because the frame rate drops and performance dips back in the day, they were generally caused by two things: a whole lot going on and kind of some crazy landscape, think mountains and so on, or even actually moving the landscape itself. Now as you can see here with me moving the camera around like an idiot, the frame is staying good and solid with no issues really at all. So overall for gameplay, if I'm picky, I would complain about the controller functionality being a bit smoother for things like lane path, rather than clicking each individual square, or even the learning curve at times with controls and sometimes lacking tutorials. But honestly, once you get over this initial kind of welcoming, shall we say, this is still the same great RollerCoaster Tycoon you remember, even if I do hold the first two entries higher in ranking. That said though, a ton of content here with 39 career modes to work your way through and sandbox mode. This will keep you not only busy, but you'll very easily be able to sink hundreds of hours into this. My only request, honestly, more flexibility on what sandbox is. Let me choose those boundaries, bank account and so on. But also then, and this might be a bit of a silly ask, but it would have been nice to have seen even bigger locations, even bigger sandboxes, as I think the hardware now is more than up to the task. This is a remaster though, so I'm not going to hold that against the game. Overall, it feels great docked or handheld. So graphically speaking, RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 was always going to be a little rough around the edges, let's face it. Where the first two entries used pixel work, and they would have no doubt translated very well with the current pixel work generation we're going through at the moment. This is very early 3D, and that is very clear from the blocky look of the crowd when they enter the park to the less than ideal shadow work on these rides. It's not a bad looking game, but it's for sure going to be easier for those of us who grew up on it to digest. This is very much the original game with a texture enhancement slightly, and then of course that bumped resolution. I think for the younger audiences, seeing these character models could for sure yield some interesting reactions. What hasn't lost any of its charm though, and this is no doubt at my age, but a quick double tap of Y on one of the rides and you get to jump in first person on these rides, and that just feels still as exciting as the first time I ever tried it. I'd love to see it visually upgraded, but you know what, there's something comforting about riding your way around this just blocky world. Problems visually, gotta say the load screens, I think they could have done with an upgrade by now if I'm being really picky. They load in at a percentage, and it's all very PC as it's reeling off information, loading in textures, loading in, items, and it's just kind of that's something we probably haven't seen in a game for some years. Then pop in, if you zoom out too far, the crowd disappears, which I will say makes sense to a certain extent, because at times you could have, well over 1,000 of these folks wandering around, and it might be an old game, but that no doubt still takes a lot of processing power. The problems though, the rides themselves, portions of them will literally disappear and then pop in back as you return. This was disappointing as you see a car basically flying through half an invisible track. Visually though, overall, if they could have fixed this slight pop in, this would have been everything I anticipated. So audio then on this is going to be super quick. Some minor music that you can completely ignore, and it's designed to be that way, and then some park effects. So think zooming close enough, you're going to hear the crowd, which is a really nice touch honestly, but you'll also hear things like the ride mechanics, the laughter, and of course the screams. For its time, this was a nice little audio field that still, I gotta say, stands up to this day, especially the way the audio kicks in the closer you get. So overall, RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 Complete Edition is a solid package with a ton of content. Huge career mode that's topped off then with the sandbox world to play in. This is where I spent most of my time personally, trying to fit every single ride into one space, and I had as much fun doing it now as I did back in the day, and I'm already thinking about what my next incredible theme park will be. It was always that addictive, and it got me again nearly immediately after years of, getting myself away from it. Would it convert non-believers? Absolutely no way. This is the game you very much remember in every single way, but thankfully performance has been improved. That said, still a couple of issues like the pop-in as you zoom out, the lack of options in sandbox, and then some of that menu navigation initially, it's going to take a little while to get your head around, and you'll probably question why some things you can't do, like, you know, drag and drop certain like pieces of pavement and so on. With all that though, this is a great game that I grew up on, that I played alongside my family and friends, and hopefully this is another chance to have some of these moments. There's nothing quite as satisfying as getting together and naming a park and naming all the rides together. Still enjoyed that to this day. Today I'm going to be giving RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 Complete Edition a great 8 out of 10. Price point may feel a tiny bit high given its age, but it's not short on content, that is for sure, and it's better to support this RollerCoaster Tycoon than the awful effort that was done by like Atari. With that then, like, a shout out to the patrons of the channel who are just going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. Truly is appreciated, so thank you all so much. If you want to check that out for yourself, it is linked in the video description down below. Then hit subscribe if you love the Switch as much as we all do here. Join our growing family, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.